Hey, what's up guys? Today we're taking a look at Lies of P on Apple Silicon machines. This is by NeoWiz and was collaborated on by the Apple Metal engineering team. Lies of P is interesting because it's quite a big game and it was released on Mac the same day as Windows PC and console, which is very rare for this platform and was just really exciting to see. It's also really cool because this is a fantastic Souls-like on the level of the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne. There is not that much out there like this on Mac. I've been told that Lies of P is a Metal 3 game, and it runs on Unreal Engine 4.27. NeoWiz also told me that the game supports Metal effects. However, I don't believe this is actually true, as I can't find Metal effects anywhere in the game's settings. Based on my research, I don't think it's enabled in the background. I'm not sure, that part really confuses me. The Mac version also supports HDR. I'm not showing HDR in this video, but trust me, it looks gorgeous. Lies of P also has full controller support on Apple Silicon, with rumble vibration and haptic feedback. Anyways, this is a really well optimized game and I really want to show it some love by doing a performance review of this game on 4 of my different Apple Silicon Mac machines. So let's get to it. Alrighty, our first device is Apple M1, which is being shown on my 13-inch MacBook Pro. And right now we're playing at 1080p, about medium with some settings off. I've got the exact settings that I've chosen for this device to get the best performance possible. It's on screen now. You can pause the screen right now to see what I've used. And as you can see with these settings, it's about 45 to 60 FPS in this one scene. We're a bit later in the game now. It is averaging about 60 FPS, which is really good for a game like this. As we saw 2 weeks ago with the Medium, that was a terrible port. This one has been done very well on M1 with 60 FPS at somewhat 1080p medium. And I'm really, really happy with that because Souls-like games require a high frame rate to be honestly playable. Because if you've got anything lower than about 40 FPS, it's very hard to get your parrying right and your attacks and so forth. So I'm very pleased with what we've got here. You do want to keep in mind though that it's not a locked 60 FPS. It will go below this sometimes. For example, here we are fighting Mad Donkey. Again, I'm really sorry for the bad gameplay. It's anywhere from about 55 to a bit over 60 FPS. Still pretty good. Now here we are just before a boss fight, and it's anywhere from about 55 to a little over 60 FPS. Now I want to keep in mind that this is the best I could get this game to run on Apple M1 without cranking the graphics down so much where it just looks awful. This is the best picture quality with the best performance that I could get. And this was, I benchmarked this game for like, I don't know, 3 hours. And here we are up against the scrapped Watchman. Absolutely punishes me. You really want this game to have a high frame rate so that you can get these parries. I can't. Some people would be able to, but it's just I'm really bad at the game. But you can get by here. That's what I'm trying to say. I also quickly want to point out, if you want 60 FPS plus, I would suggest playing at 900p. This is the same as 1080p settings. You're just playing at a lower resolution. And you should, based on my experience, usually get 60 FPS. 900p by today's standards is quite low, and this game is really beautiful. And playing at this lower resolution, I just don't really like it. It's up to you. Up next, we have Apple M2. For this demonstration, I'm using a 15-inch MacBook Air with M2. Here I'm playing at 1080p, medium with some settings off. I've got the exact settings that I've chosen for this device to get the best performance possible. It's on screen now. Now, I want to point out that this is a MacBook Air, which doesn't have a fan, and it's seeing a substantial boost in performance over my 13-inch MacBook Pro with M1, but still, that device had a fan. Here, you would think it will thermal throttle, and based on my experience, it doesn't get, the device doesn't get that hot with this game. In Elysium Boulevard, if that's how you say the name of this town or region, it is usually over 60 FPS with some dips into the mid to low 50s, but it's not as bad as the previous scene we saw. And it can even go up into 70 plus FPS. Here we are up against Mad Donkey again. It will be hovering about 60 down to 55 FPS. Krat City is another good location to look at because it's a little bit more open, so you can get a somewhat of a good idea of the performance here. It's hovering around 60 FPS on average. Wonderful. I called in some backup with Scrapped Watchman and I still suck. But yeah, once again, it's hovering around 60 FPS. A locked 60 FPS would be very nice on this machine, just so you get the parrying down just really smoothly and so forth, and it would really help with combat. Enabling VSeek and a 60 FPS cap may help with that. Moving on, we have Apple M2 Pro, which is inside my Mac Mini with M2 Pro. Now here I'm playing at 1440p and high settings. Now once again, we are here pretty early on in the game in Krat Central Station. It's going down into the low 40s, which was similar to M1, but we're all the way up at 1440p high settings. And that is really great for a Mac Mini, which is unheard of in the past for an Intel Mac Mini playing at 1440p. For a game like this that is so beautiful. It's just so cool to see. In a slightly less demanding scene, I would say, the frame rate can go up to 60 FPS on average. It will definitely not be a locked 60 FPS, but I still think it's really amazing that this is being done on a Mac Mini. Now, you've got to remember that this device has really good thermal management, so it really doesn't overheat. So you might see different results on a 14-inch MacBook Pro or a 16-inch MacBook Pro with M2 Pro. Boss scenes are going to have a similar result. Here we are against Mad Donkey, and it's about 60 FPS, and it can drop as well. Or up against Scrapped Watchman with my little helper, who is getting absolutely smashed there. Whoa! If you want 60 plus FPS, usually always, what you can do is play at 1080p high, and this will provide you with that performance. It's entirely up to you. And our last Mac to look at is Apple M2 Max, which is inside my 16-inch MacBook Pro. Once again, I'm playing at 1440p, high settings. And in this opening sequence, the game is getting quite a bit over 60 FPS. I also want to point out that this game is not using any form of metal effects, so it's running at native resolution here. And here in Elysian Boulevard, it's about 80 plus FPS. Boss fights are fine with about 70 to 80 plus FPS, so you won't have an issue with the game going below 60 FPS here. Krat City Hall, similar performance with about 80 FPS on average. This machine can do 4K, but it's best to play at about medium settings. And I just want to say it's not a locked 60 FPS. unfortunately. I really was hoping that it would hover closer to 60 FPS. In most scenes, it is about 40 to 50 plus-ish FPS. It's not terrible. You're playing at a very high resolution, which is not commonly known to be that achievable on any Mac. So I'm still pretty impressed, but it's up to you if you want to play the game at this resolution. It looks really, really good. I'm just going to say, if you've got a 4K monitor, treat yourself. And there we have it, Lies of P on Apple Silicon. I'm sorry that I didn't test this game on more Macs. I've just got a lot to do right now with the iPhone 15 Pro coming out and Baldur's Gate 3. I just wanted to show this game some love while I could. It's a really good port. 1080p 60 FPS on M1, great. And all the way up to 4K on a Mac Studio. That's very impressive, and that is basically what we're looking for. And this is without metal effects. Unlike the Medium port, this one has been given some true love on Apple Silicon by NeoWiz and Apple, and I'm really happy about it. It's really exciting for the future of gaming on Mac and what we can expect. I'm a bit disappointed though that there is no Game Center achievements here. Game Center achievements have been improved quite a bit in iOS 17 and iPadOS 17 and macOS Sonoma, so I really was hoping it was going to be here like it is for the Windows and console versions. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review of Lies of P, please leave a like and subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with future Apple Silicon Mac reviews. My next one should be Baldur's Gate 3, if that releases, on the 21st of September.